Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and despite it being more than 20 years since the initial release of 7th gen consoles, many people still refuse to put the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 firmly in the retro gaming space. But I think after 2024, it's going to be pretty safe to say that these consoles are now officially retro and their libraries are retro. So I want to go through 7th generation games that achieved grail status during the year of 2024. And I'm making this because this will probably be one of the last Black Friday, Christmas holidays where we'll be able to take advantage of promotions and deals that will apply to 7th gen games that are easily available or readily available. There are still some of these games that you can find out in the wild, and while you can find them, I say try and grab them. Even though most places that would sell these games have priced them up to kind of match their market price or close to what their market price is, if you can still get them for 15, 20, even 30% off, it may be worth your while. So Azura's Wrath is definitely not one of them, but it is a game that we did see the price fluctuate. But Azura's Wrath, for whatever reason, hasn't hit Grail status yet. It is one of the pricier games on the 360, but not Grail status. So let's go ahead and get into these Grail status games. Now, the first one comes with a little bit of an asterisk, and that is Deadpool. So Deadpool momentarily achieved Grail status during 2024, and I think it was for a combination of reasons. One, this game has been delisted. Two, the Xbox 360 store shut down. And then three, the Deadpool Wolverine movie came out, and it just shot all things Deadpool Wolverine to the stratosphere. But the thing is, I think there's a big reason why there was a huge price drop in this game, and part of that is because of the PlayStation 4 release of Deadpool. Now, Deadpool is available on a number of platforms. I think you can get it on the PS3, the 360, the Xbox One, and of course the PS4. But it seems that gamers have designated the PlayStation 4 as the best way to actually play the game. And so I think, with the price dropping on the 360, Deadpool has definitely hit Grail status on the PlayStation 4. So it was like a quick turnaround. Like, yeah, it hit Grail status on the 360, but then it quickly dropped and people said, oh, nope, we'd rather have it on the PlayStation 4. So Deadpool is definitely one, but because there's so many ways to play it, it didn't really last long on the 360. Another game that hit Grail status in 2024 is another 7th gen game, and that is Raiden Fighters Aces. Now, like many of the 360 games that you'll see in this list, a lot of these games really shot up. They shot up towards the end of the summer, hit their peak, and then some of them have come down 15, 20%. But I would say that at this stage of the game, these games are Grail status games for the 360. Like, by 360 standards, these would be some of their gaming grails. And so Raiden Fighters definitely falls in that category. This is a shoot 'em up compilation of 3 games. If you're into shoot 'em ups, I love me a good shoot 'em up. And some of these games I think were only available in arcade. So really great way to play some awesome Raiden shoot 'em ups, Raiden, however you say it. But if you don't have this one on the 360 and you're a fan of shoot 'em ups, check it out. The 360 was home to a lot of really cool shoot 'em ups that came out during that era, and this is definitely one of them, so I would keep my eyes peeled. Raiden Ace is probably now somewhere between 60 and 70 bucks. It did peak, I want to say, like around 90, a little bit over 90 bucks over the summer and going into fall. Next up, this is another one. You have Knight's Contract. This is a pretty cool, like, action adventure game on the 360. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a game that this would kind of liken to, but just think, your action adventure games, your character adventure games, as some people might call it, where you get different weapons and magic abilities and different attacks. This game was, I believe, also available on the PS3, but part of that 360 tax that came across during the second half of the year. or during the summer really, Knight's contract definitely shot up. It's a good game on the 360, just not one you see as frequent out in the wild anymore. But this was a very cheap game at one point. I remember this game was like in the 20s. And then it just shot up and it hit grail status. This is not one that I see coming back down anytime soon. So if you are a collector of the 360, if you're thinking about collecting for 7th gen, this is one that's going to be one of the more expensive ones on the 360. And then last but not least, this one hit like super grail status on the 360, and that is Fist of the North Star, Ken's Rage 2. So this was a $40 game at the beginning of 2024, and then we all know what happened with the 360 library, and this game just shot way into the stratosphere. At one point, it was nuts. At one point, I saw asking prices for this game of $250, $275. Some people wanted $300 for sealed copies. This game was going crazy. But I think this game has now settled down somewhere in the $150 to $170 range, which is still really expensive for an Xbox 360 game. I picked this up, I think, towards the end of 2023 or 2022 when it was still in the 40s. I think I paid like $40 for it. Now this is definitely hit grail status, and a lot of it is just because the only other way to play this game is on the PlayStation 3, and that would be the import version. If you have a PlayStation 3 that can convert the languages, or if you have some converter ability or whatever the case may be, then that's great. But this is the only North American version of Fist of the North Star, Ken's Rage 2. I said that in one video and people were saying, no, it's not true, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, if there is another North American version of this game on the 360 or PlayStation 3, please let me know. Give me a link so I can find that, because I'd love to add it to my collection. But I haven't seen that. So this is one that's definitely hit grail status in 2024. And if you are collecting for the 360, mainly these three are ones that you'll want to look for. You can get Deadpool on the PS4, but if you want to get it on your 360, you definitely have that option there. All right, now we're going to get into some PS3 games, which are also part of the 7th gen. And since we're talking about Deadpool, we might as well talk about Wolverine, because this was another one that shot up into grail status during 2024. Wolverine Origins was probably, like I said, a $20 to $30 game at the start of 2024. It started to slowly creep up a little bit, like in the beginning part of the year. But once Wolverine Deadpool came around, this game just shot to the moon. This is another one of those games that really just spiked really hard. At one point, I saw this game going for $150, $175. Sealed copies were going crazy. And then obviously GameStop followed the trend. You know, first it was $37, then they bumped it up to $40, then they bumped it up to $49, then it went to $71. And I think the last time I saw Wolverine Origins on GameStop's website, it was going for $75 if you're not a pro member. If you're a pro member, it's like $72 plus tax. So this game, complete in box, has settled in somewhere between like $85 and $90, $85 and $95, which, I mean, it's still pretty expensive for the PlayStation 3. There aren't a ton of PlayStation 3 games that have hit grail status at this stage of the game. But I think it's safe to say that Wolverine is going to be a grail status game, not just because of the Wolverine Deadpool movie, but because this is a fun game. Like Deadpool, the fun factor on Deadpool is questionable. It's not the most fun game, but Wolverine is definitely a fun game. X-Men Origins Wolverine Uncaged Edition is a very fun game. I like the story. The graphics are really good for PS3. I think just the action in this game is really cool. So this is a fun game. This one I think has earned its grail status, not just because of the movie, but because of how fun the game is. Next up, we have a game that's always been a fairly expensive game, but not grail status, you know, up until 2024, and that's Yakuza Dead Souls. Yakuza Dead Souls was definitely one of those games. Yakuza Dead Souls was kind of in the Fist of the North Star, Ken's Rage 2 zone. I want to say in the beginning of the year, towards the end of last year, it was like one of those 45, maybe between $40 and $50 games. Not super talked about a lot, but if you were into that genre of gaming, then you knew about those games. Yakuza Dead Souls is definitely one of the games that shot up in 2024. I want to say this game peaked somewhere between 90 and $100. I'm not sure how much it's come down off of its highs, but at this stage of the game, it's safe to say that Yakuza is a grail game on the PS3. By PS3 standards, this is definitely one that anyone who's looking to complete a PS3 library, they'll eventually have to cross paths with this game to complete their library, and this one will wind up running them a pretty penny, somewhere between 85 and $100 on this one. But Dead Souls is a fun one. Not exactly my type of game. I'm not like as in love with Dead Souls as I am Wolverine, but it's still a cool game, one that you'll want to check out. And then last but not least, this one is actually one that I recently picked up and I was shocked at the price, but Saw 2. So Saw 2 saw a massive spike in 2024. Again, this was one of those games that was in the $30 to $40 zone and then just spiked up really hard. This game right now is going between 100 and 115 bucks online, complete, if you can get it complete. A lot of these games are becoming harder and harder to find complete, and I think part of what you're gonna see as we move further and further away from the PlayStation 3, you're going to see people want to go after these games more just because of the manual factor. We started to see a lot of games come out with no manual during the 7th gen era, but by the time we got to 8th gen, it was like no manuals. So really the 7th generation is the last generation of consistent manuals in video games, and I think that's going to be a big appeal for physical collectors. But Saw 2 was definitely one that jumped up. I played a little bit of this game. These Saw games, they suck you in. I mean, their first Saw is pretty interesting too, but it's not near as expensive as, it's like half the price of Saw 2. Right now, you can get the first version of Saw for like 50 or to 60 bucks. But both games kind of suck you in. There's just something about them that draws you in. And I think the ambiance combined with the puzzle solving factor is just really interesting. I can't remember if it's 1 or if it's 2, but you start off in this like bathroom and you got to use this combination to get this like mask off of your face. It's gonna crush you, and then like you're in the bathroom and you have to use like numbers that are on a stall, but read them backwards by looking through the mirror, which has like stains on it that covers up certain portions of the markings on the bathroom stalls to reveal a different set of numbers, and then you got to use those numbers to punch in a keypad to get out of the room. It's like, it's very like, it draws you in with that puzzle solving mystery suspense stuff. And I think that's why the Saw game is really interesting game. So very interesting game, Saw. It's not bad. It's not my cup of tea, but I see why it's fun. Like it's very interesting. I played some of it and it was a pretty cool game. But yeah, so if you're thinking about diving into 7th gen and you're thinking about what are the grails that I'm going to have to get if I want to complete a set, this is what you're looking at for the 360 and the PS3. Obviously, you have the Wii. I didn't take the time to see if there were any massive spikes in the Wii, but I feel like a lot of the games that were expensive on the Wii, like last year, are still expensive on the Wii. I don't know of many games that really spiked. And then, of course, you have like the DS, which is also a part of 7th gen, and PSP. I may do a separate video on the handhelds that have spiked, but I didn't really see many games for the PSP spike during 2024. Same thing with the DS. I feel like the PSP is not like, it's weird, but not many people are into the PSP. It's just, I don't know what it is. I like the PSP. I think there are a lot of unique games that came out on the PSP that we haven't seen anywhere else. You know, games like Garuman, A Monstrous Tale, Chili Con Carnage, Kenka Bancho. There's like a few games on the PSP that are just sick, and I'm also shocked that they never got a Switch port. We saw games like Prinny, which was originally released on the PSP. Prinny 1 and 2 got a port to the Switch, but we never saw that happen for games like Garuman, which I think a game like Garuman would do really well on the Switch, especially if they upscaled it in any kind of way. Same thing with Kenka Bancho, same thing with Chili Con Carnage. Although Chili Con Carnage does feel a little bit dated because it plays a lot like Grand Theft Auto 3, but look, it is what it is. These are just some of my random babbling thoughts on Gen 7 games. Let me know if any of these games interest you and if you've actually spotted any of these games in the wild. And what prices are you seeing for these games? But that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. I will catch you in the next video. Take it easy.